Good afternoon and welcome to the Spring 2017 Test Admin Training. My name is Sarah Snuggs and I will be your trainer today. We have some information that we're going to go through today about the upcoming spring assessment and some enhancements that have been made on the landing page and on the ACT Aspire portal. So thank you for joining us. As we go through our training, if you have any questions at any time, go ahead and you'll see on your navigation bar that there is a Q&A option. When you select that, it'll open up a question box. You can simply type in your question and then select the send button when you're done, and one of our panelists will respond to you as soon as possible. So our agenda for today, we're going to start with some test admin and due dates, and then we'll discuss those enhancements for ACT Aspire, and those include the landing page, some technology updates, spring 2017 updates and reminders, and then we'll touch on the portal updates as well. So let's get started with a review of your test admin and due dates. So here is the test delivery schedule for the Spring 2017 Summative Assessment for Wyoming. And this schedule provides you some helpful dates to help you prepare for the ACT Aspire assessments that are coming up in April. So we had from February 20th through March 3rd, this was when districts and schools, you could go in and confirm or make any necessary updates to your student data. March 10th was the deadline for a couple of different things. So first of all was the deadline for accommodations to be entered into the student profile, the personal needs profile section of the student profile within the ACT Aspire portal. March 10th was also the deadline for submitting your paper-based test orders. And essentially you placed those orders by creating test sessions and getting any students that needed a paper-based test into those test sessions. And do remember, state approval is required to test paper. So by creating those test sessions and getting your students in there, you submitted your order to ACT Aspire, letting us know how many materials you would need and allowing us to create the personalized pre-ID answer documents for those students. March 31st, coming up here at the end of the month, this will be the deadline for technology coordinators to conduct online readiness testing. Make sure that all of your computers are ready for students to test on, get your network configuration completed, make sure that all of the configurations are ready for testing to come up in April. April 3rd through the 7th, this is when test coordinators will receive any paper shipments for those paper-based test orders that were entered by March 10th. April 7th is the deadline for technology coordinators to complete Proctor caching setup. And Proctor caching does have a couple of different components. The technology coordinators need to install the Proctor caching software on the computer that's going to serve as the Proctor caching computer. We'll talk about this a little bit further here in a moment. And then the other step is creating a Proctor caching setting in the portal. So there are those two different steps that will need to be completed by the technology coordinators to complete your Proctor caching setup. April 7th is also the deadline for testing coordinators to set up any test sessions for online testing. So paper-based testing was March 10th. April 7th, all of your online testing, you should have those set up and students added in there by April 7th. And then the ACT Aspire testing window will open up on April 10th and go through May 3rd. Now let's go ahead and review some updates that have been made to the ACT Aspire landing page. So remember, the ACT Aspire landing page is accessible at actaspire.pearson.com, and the landing page is intended to be kind of your one-stop shop where you can quickly link to different resources and documents from one location, again, actaspire.pearson.com. And we have made some updates. So we've added this headline section here on the home page. The headlines banner will let you know about important updates and reminders, and will include links to resources and or documents that will help you understand that information or help you complete the task that needs to be completed. Additionally, we've added a link to the new Diagnostics Performance Level Descriptors, or PLDs. This is right here on the home page. And these PLDs were just added in the fall, so these are relatively new. You can go here, learn information about these performance level descriptors. These outline what students need to know at each grade level and subject. Another great resource on the landing page, I'm going to go back here again, actaspire.pearson.com. You'll see that there's exemplar items. So we're going to talk about those exemplars. A great way to gain experience with TestNav is by using the ACT Aspire exemplars. And as we saw, those are on the landing page on that exemplars tab. And you can access these at any time from a laptop or a desktop that is connected to the internet. We do recommend beginning with this new TestNav 8 tutorial. We added this in the fall. This tutorial provides a general overview of TestNav. It's going to walk through the different functionality and tools that are available, let students know how to navigate through TestNav so that they become familiar with using the testing platform, how they're going to take the test, and then they can go and take the subject exemplars and become familiar with the content. So that way they're familiar with the system before they have to go through and start taking the sample test items. So we do have exemplars for each subject, and they provide grade-specific sample test items and tasks. The content on the exemplars is comprised, as you can see, of separate grade bands. So for Wyoming, you'll be taking these grade 9 and 10 early high school, those grade bands. And there's one grade band for the English high school early high school for each subject. And it's going to show the different item types and formats. We've also recently added a writing exemplar, and these have examples of writing at each score point. You'll also see that we have links to test question booklets. It's a PDF that accompanies each exemplar and provides an overview of what is being assessed on that exemplar. It gives you improvement idea statements, gives you an answer key, goes through the depth of knowledge level for each individual question in the reporting categories. So really walks through what the exemplar is assessing so that you can help students continue to improve. Also available from that landing page, actaspire.pearson.com, there is a training and manuals tab, and at the bottom you'll see Avocet and the training management system. So the training management system is our online resource that provides self-paced training modules and demonstration videos. You can also link directly to it at actaspire.tms.pearson.com if you want to bookmark it directly. So this requires a registration. You're just going to provide your email address and your name and be able to register. When you come back to the TMS, you'll put in your email address, and it's going to keep track of all of the trainings that you've accessed so that you know which ones you've completed, which ones you may still need to take, or if you wanted to come back and refresh on something, we always include an updated date so that you know if something has been updated since you last completed it. So we do have summative training modules, and these have everything from getting set up and logged into the portal all the way down to reporting after the assessment window ends. And then we also have an enhancement demo tab. So every 6 weeks, there are updates made to the portal. And so these enhancement demos, the video will walk through each of the enhancements that have been implemented, show you what they are in the portal. And then we also have a link to an enhancement supplement document. This is a PDF that you can open and review and see that same information in a written format. So also, we said there on the landing page under training manuals, it's Avocet and the training management system. So don't forget to use your state-specific Avocet site. You always want to make sure you're seeing ACT Aspire Wyoming at the top. This is going to be your Avocet site, your home for all of the ACT Aspire documents. You can link directly to it and bookmark it if you want. You can also, like I said, always find it off of the landing page under the Training and Manuals tab. And we're going to be going over some new and updated functionality. But like I said, those enhancements are made every 6 weeks, so we're not able to cover everything that may have been implemented in the portal since last time you were in there. So if you ever want to come and see all of the different information, like we said on the TMS, that enhancement supplement is there, but it's also available on Avocet. So if you go to P for portal enhancements, you can access each of these PDFs as well, review them, and see what other enhancements we have made to the portal since last year. And then another great resource site is the Wyoming ACT testing site. It's available at www.act.org/state-and-district/Wyoming. We are going to be recording today's webinar. We're providing a PDF of the presentation that we're going through. It will be available on Avocet under T for training. It will also be posted here in the training information. This site has been recently updated and we are getting links added. So just know that some of these resources may have some coming soon information. We are getting those links added and we hope to have those there by the end of the week. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some technology updates. So also from the landing page, actaspire.pearson.com, we have a technology setup tab. And this is where you can find all your resources to prepare for online testing. So has resources for AppCheck, ProctorCache, and TestNav. AppCheck, we'll talk a little bit more in depth here in a little bit, but AppCheck replaces our previous System Check tool, which was an online website that you could use to assess your readiness for TestNav. So AppCheck is replacing that, so you can get information about AppCheck here. ProctorCache, this is where you're going to be able to get your ProctorCache installers. And remember that ProctorCache is required for ACT Aspire this year. Previously, we said it was highly recommended. This year, we are saying it's required due to the many benefits it provides. And essentially, ProctorCaching allows you to download the test forms, the content, to a local computer in an encrypted format, and then that computer is going to provide the content to the students as they log into TestNav. And so it really reduces the bandwidth requirements on your internet service provider, rather than having students go through the internet and pull down that same content, redundant content multiple times. With ProctorCaching, since it's there locally, it's being served at local area network speeds and allows the content to be delivered much more quickly to the students. And then TestNav. TestNav is, of course, the online testing platform that students are going to use to log into. So this is where you can come and find resources for TestNav as well. Below AppCheck, ProctorCache, TestNav, you'll see we also have links to the installable TestNav apps. ACT Aspire does recommend using one of the TestNav apps rather than browser-based testing. With the apps, you don't need to use Java. It's not required with the apps. So for that reason alone, positive feedback has been received for the apps over the browser-based testing. And then also, of course, browsers are updated regularly. So, with the installable TestNav, you don't have to worry about the browsers being updated during testing. Java almost always has a Java update that happens in April. You don't have to worry about that Java update occurring during testing. The installable TestNav really gives you a more stable way to test your students without worrying about those updates that may occur. So all of the apps, as you can see, they're accessible here on the landing page under that Technology Setup tab. And so based on the platform that you're going to be using, you download the app or apps that you're going to need for testing. So the desktop app is intended for Windows, Mac, and Linux desktops and laptops. The iPad app for iPads, and Chromebook app, of course, for Chromebooks. If you do need to use a browser for a backup method of testing, I just want to remind folks that only Firefox ESR 45, which is a 32-bit version, is supported this year. So you can't use any of the other browsers that you may have. You do need to make sure that you install Firefox ESR 45 32-bit version. So we do have a TestNav 8 support site this year. It's also accessible from the landing page under that Technology Setup tab. This is going to be your online resource for information regarding the setup and support of both TestNav and ProctorCache. The site is updated regularly, so it's only going to contain the most recent information, and we do have this recently updated section so that you can come and see any recent changes that have been made. There's no login required to access the support site, and it is mobile ready. I'm going to go ahead and click over here, and we'll take a look at that site for a moment. So this is the TestNav 8 support site. So again, over here on this left-hand side, this is where you can navigate whenever you see this little arrow that lets you know that it's expandable and there's more information. So setting up and using TestNav, we have all of the different options: Linux, OS X, Windows, Chrome OS, iOS, and Firefox ESR. You will see this setup TestNav on Android. However, please remember ACT Aspire does not support testing on Android at this time. So any of the other links and information are applicable to ACT Aspire. Disregard anything for Android devices. It again is not supported for ACT Aspire. Troubleshooting, error codes. This is a helpful online resource. So as students are using TestNav, it's possible an error code may come up. These are all broken out by their error number, so you can very quickly come on to the support site and find information about an error code that may have come up for a student. Whenever you come here, you can see the error number and the error message, and we try to give you some helpful information to resolve it so that the students can get on to testing as quickly as possible. So this will be where you can find all your support, again, for TestNav and for ProctorCache. And then here under the recently updated, like I said, we are updating it regularly. So as new information, updated information is here, you can always come to the recently updated and see what has changed so that you can make changes locally if needed. So now we'll talk about setup details. So again, remember, installable TestNav app is what we recommend so that you're not impacted by any browser updates or changes, and you don't need to worry about using Java to secure the testing. So remember, it's available for desktop, iPad, and Chromebook. You can download it from the landing page. It will link directly to this URL, download.testnav.com, if you want to bookmark that. And just remember, from that site, you'll see information about Android, but ACT Aspire does not support Android devices at this time. And then no matter what method of testing you're using, whether you're using one or multiple of the installable apps and or using the browser-based testing as a backup method, you need to make sure that your network configuration is set up. So your technology coordinators need to make sure that they whitelist and allow these URLs to get through the firewalls, content filters, anything that may reroute or block access. You want to make sure that these are set up so that students can test and that you don't have any issues during the assessment window. So this asterisk is a wildcard. So .tn.actaspire.org, that is the TestNav for ACT Aspire, and then port 80, and tnactaspire.org, port 443, body.com, pearsontestcontent.com, usertrust.com, and commodica.com. Those are all required. And then this last one you'll see is optional, google-analytics.com. That one is optional. All of these others with the asterisk, that's a wildcard symbol, but it is also helpful in that it's required, these 6 do need to be set up to make it through your network configuration so that, again, students can successfully test during your assessment window. I want to talk about a couple changes with iPads, in case you're using iPads. Last year, we had 4 setup methods for iPads. As of the fall, we moved to a single setup method. So just reminding folks, or if you didn't use iPads in the fall, there is only one setup method, which is the Automatic Assessment Configuration, or AAC. So AAC is what is going to ensure that the student can't access any other apps, pages, or features after it goes into what's called single app or kiosk mode. That's that full screen mode that stops and releases the device when the student signs in and out of TestNav. So to install TestNav, if you do still have any of those previously established, there was 4 setup methods previously. If you have any of those previously established TestNav restrictions on your iPads, you want to delete them off of those iPads. If you have any questions about AAC, you want to learn some more information, you can do that on the Apple Education website, www.apple.com/education/IT, and then look for the assessments overview, and you can find some more details there. And then you need to make sure that you download and install the latest version of TestNav for iPads, get that app installed on the devices. And I just want to remind you, when the app is initially launched, very first time, one-time prompt, it's going to display the Enable Microphone Permission prompt. So you need to click or tap OK to grant permission. If permission is not granted, you can always go to the settings on the iPad and change that to allow permission, but you do need to click OK. And essentially, it's just telling TestNav that should it ever encounter an audio recorder question, that it is enabling the microphone to allow that audio recording to occur. So even though it doesn't apply to ACT Aspire at this time, TestNav as a whole needs you to enable that microphone permission, and so just click OK that first time. Every time a student logs in, though, this is new from, again, last spring, with the AAC, every time a student logs into TestNav, they are going to have a Confirm App Self-Lock prompt. So the student needs to click or tap yes to proceed with testing. So that's going to come up every time the student logs into TestNav. If they accidentally click no, it's not a big deal. They'll be taken back to the sign-in screen. They can then use their username and password from their student testing ticket and then click yes that second time to proceed and get into the test. And also for iPads, Apple only allows an app to run in that single app or kiosk mode, which TestNav uses to go into that full screen mode. It only allows an app to run in that mode for a specific amount of time before it automatically takes the device out of kiosk mode. So this affects the length of time that TestNav is able to run after a student signs into a test. So for iOS 9.3.x, so 9.3.2 through 9.3.5, that time limit is 3 hours. For iOS 10.2, 10.2.1, it allows up to 8 hours. So really for any students who are still using a 9.3.2 or 9.3.5, you want to make sure that you're not having any students impacted by that 3-hour time limit. So before you begin testing, just go ahead and make sure, if you're using, again, one of those 9.3 versions, determine if there's going to be any students who need extended time that is going to exceed the time limit for an individual subject test. So if a student needs more than 3 hours to take a subject test, you want to make sure you plan a break for them so that they can sign out of TestNav before that time expires. And then it's a natural break for them. They have that breaking point. They can sign out of TestNav. The room supervisor will then need to resume the student in the portal, and then the student can log back in after their break. If for some reason that break doesn't occur and the student gets kicked out, that time limit expires, and they're exited from the test, The room supervisor will still need to resume the student in the portal. However, the student will also need to have their iPad restarted and the TestNav app restarted. So it's a little bit more disruptive. So just make sure you're accounting for it. Plan a break for them if you're still using 9.3 versions of the iOS so that they can log out and log back in without any distraction. So now let's talk about AppCheck and the configuration identifier. So AppCheck has previously been used in the installable desktop, iPad, and Chromebook TestNav versions. You could run a very quick app check to confirm that the TestNav setup was successful. And for browser-based testing, that was done through System Check, and that also gave you the ability to check your Proctor Cache settings. So going forward, that System Check website is no longer available. So if you try to go to that old URL, it's already come down, so that System Check website is no longer available. So since we're really recommending the installable versions for all computers and devices, AppCheck is now going to be where you go to check the system still, but also now perform that Proctor Cache check. And to run that Proctor Cache check, you're going to need what's called a configuration identifier that your technology coordinators will be able to provide you from the portal. So let's take a look at that configuration identifier. So to obtain your organization's configuration identifier, you'll go to Organizations on your navigation bar in the portal, and then select Proctor Cache Settings from the drop-down menu. And so you'll see here underneath the primary host IP address field, this is where that configuration identifier can be found. So if you're creating brand new configurations, you'll put in your IP address. It's always port 4480, and then click Save, and that configuration identifier will become active. If you have any existing settings already in the portal, you've done Proctor caching in the past, you will still need to come into the portal and then just edit this IP address, take out that 7 at the end, delete, type it in again, and then click Save again, and that will activate the configuration ID. So it does need to be saved in the portal for that identifier to become active. So now once you have got your configuration identifier, you can run your app check. You can also run your app check without that configuration identifier. It's going to be optional. We're going to show you that. But to run app check, you need to open up your installable TestNav, your desktop, iPad, Chromebook TestNav app. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll have your user dropdown, and you're going to choose app check from that menu. It will then take you to this app check screen, and you can see, again, that field for the configuration identifier. It is listed as optional, so you can still run the basic TestNav setup check you could run before. You would just select Run App Check, leaving that configuration identifier blank. If you want to run that setup check as well as the Proctor Cache check, that's where you're going to need that configuration identifier from the portal. You'll type that in and then select Run App Check, and it will perform both of the checks. So in this example, we ran a basic TestNav check. So you can see the configuration identifier field. It's still blank. We didn't put anything in there. And all we did was click Run App Check. And so it checked kiosk mode. So again, kiosk mode is that full screen mode. It's making sure that TestNav was able to go into that full screen mode, and that connectivity to TestNav was successful. In this second example, you can see we entered that configuration identifier. It's been typed in. We ran the app check, and now we have still kiosk mode, connectivity to TestNav, but now you can see that it also is running that Proctor Cache check. And in this case, the Proctor Cache passed. This was a successful check on all three. In this example, we can see we ran all three, but the Proctor Cache check failed. So we have this red alert. So whenever it's successful, it'll be the green background with the green check mark. And then whenever something fails, it'll have the red background and the red exclamation point alert. So it's going to try to give you some additional information, refer you to some support where necessary. So in this case, we're referring to the Set Up and Use ProctorCash section on that TestNav 8 online support site that we were looking at earlier. And it has a link so that you can go directly to the information. So we're always going to try to give you some additional information, some resources so that you can resolve any of the checks that may fail. So now let's go through a few additional technology reminders and updates. First of all, technology coordinators, they do need to make sure that the ProctorCash software is installed on the identified ProctorCash machine or machines. So you can create ProctorCash settings in the portal at either the district and or the school level. So it provides you some flexibility so they can have a ProctorCashing computer that's going to serve the entire district, or could have ProctorCashing machines at each individual school. So need to determine what your ProctorCashing plan is going to be, and then install the ProctorCashing machine on each of those machines that are going to be used. If you've used ProctorCashing for previous administrations, then the technology coordinators will need to purge any existing content from those machines prior to downloading the new spring content. And information about purging content from the ProctorCashing machines can be found on that TestNav 8 support site that we were looking at earlier. And then, of course, need to put those ProctorCash settings into the portal so that you're linking together the ProctorCashing machine with the test sessions that the students are logging into, so that the test sessions know where to go get that content. It's also where you'll get that, again, that configuration identifier we were just looking at. Technology coordinators then need to make sure that all the student workstations and devices, that the apps are installed and or fully updated. And then if you are planning to use the Firefox browser as a backup method, you need to make sure that you do, of course, have the correct Firefox ESR 45 installed, and that they're configured so that TestNav can launch. And on the day of testing, you'll just want to make sure that any other apps on the device or on any other applications on the computers, anything else is closed, and that only TestNav is running. Have that TestNav login screen up for the students so that they can quickly get logged in and begin testing. Okay, so now let's go through some other Spring 2017 updates and reminders. So this is a table of the test time by grade and subject, and you can find this table in the Test Coordinator Manual. The Test Coordinator Manual is located on Avocet under M for Manuals. When you're reviewing this table, I do want to note that this English text audio, these times do apply to paper-based testing. So if you have any students that are taking a paper accommodation and they would need this extended time, those times do need to be locally tracked. So TestNav does that timing for online testing. For any paper-based testing, the test administrator needs to make sure that they're locally tracking that and giving those students those extended times. Administration times are only going to begin once the room supervisors have given their verbal instructions and students log into TestNav. So again, TestNav is going to do the timing for online testing. And then for any allowed paper-based administrations, the timer needs to be done, the timing needs to be done by the test administrator, and that timer should only begin after students have completed their pre-test answer document grading and again received their verbal instructions. So once students actually begin testing is when that timer should begin if you're locally tracking it. And then if you're planning to deliver 2 or more tests in a single sitting, just make sure that you're accounting for the extra time that you need, 5 to 10 minutes between each test so that you can collect the students' authorization tickets, any other materials they may have, distribute the new ones for the next test, go over the instructions. So, these are the times for the test itself, but you want to make sure you're accounting for, again, those administration times to distribute and collect materials. And then we also recommend that you go through, take some time, look at all the users that are set up in your district and clean them up. So remember, the portal has student information, it's secure information. You only want to have the right people having access to the portal. So take some time, go through and make sure that your users are cleaned up. So in the portal, you can go to the organizations menu and select organization members. You can verify that your users are still accurate, that they have the correct portal roles. There are some new roles that have been added this year. So these include report permissions and student admin. Report permissions, that role allows users to access any posted reports as well as access the dynamic reports, but nothing else. So if you have some folks who just help you with reporting, they can now be given that report permissions role, and they'll only have access to the reports and no other functionality within the portal. The student admin role has access to all the functionality on that students tab in the portal, so they can help with adding students to the portal, updating student personal needs profiles, helping with transfers that may occur. So they have access to all that functionality on the students tab, but again, no other functionality in the portal. So on Avocet, under P for portal user roles, you'll find that there is a matrix available, so you can take a look at all the different types of roles and functionality, so you can make sure you're giving folks the correct role for the role that you need them to perform in the portal. And then, of course, once you take a look, you've updated roles and information, make sure to remove any users who are no longer with your district or simply are no longer needed in the portal. Like I said, you want to make sure that that student information is remaining secure, and you don't want folks to have access that they shouldn't. And then, of course, once you go through, you've cleaned up everyone, you're going to find that you probably have new staff members that you need to invite into the portal. So you're going to do that directly from the portal on that organization members. There's an invite new members option that you can select. You'll be able to input their email addresses and select the roles that they're going to perform. Remember that invites for your school level users, you need to change your organization to that school so that they're extended at the school level and not the district level. If they're district personnel, then you can use that district organization up in the top right-hand corner. We recommend using their professional email address, and then, of course, like I said, choose the role that they should perform in the portal. And then it's always good to give them a heads up, let them know that those portal invites are going to be coming. They come from admin@actaspire.org. So if they can't locate their email, you might have them check their spam folder, and it usually, goes out within about 15 minutes after you invite them. So it goes out pretty quickly. Okay, so now we're going to move on to test sessions. So the new test details screen still allows you to choose whether you want to create test sessions individually or multiple sessions at once. So, but there have been some changes. We're going to go through that. At this point, create those single sessions are best when you want to select individual students to add to a session after you create it. A great example would have been if you had any paper test takers and you just had, those few students had that accommodation. That create single would allow you to select those individual students, get them added into that individual test session. Create multiple. Those multiple sessions are best for schools that create their sessions by grade level, group, or teacher. So in this case, you're going to be able to add students automatically to the sessions. You can still add or remove students manually if you need to, though. So let's take a look at that multiple test details. So the first step will be to choose your test administration, in this case, Summative Spring 2017. You're going to choose that online mode of testing to apply to the sessions. You will then determine your testing window. So for computer-based testing, you're going to put in your start and end dates, and that is going to control the window that the test session will allow students to log in to TestNav and access the test. So we provide you a lot of flexibility. You're going to provide your start and end date for your testing window. You can set start and end times. So like the default is going to be 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That means only between the hours of 8 and 4 could a student log in to TestNav. If they had their student testing ticket and they tried to log in outside of those hours, then they would not be able to. So it gives you some additional security options. You can always choose 24-hour testing, and then TestNav is available at any time throughout the window. The time zone should default to your current time zone. But if for any reason you needed to change it, you could. You can also choose which days of the week you're going to do testing. If you're planning to only do testing on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you can choose Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then again, students cannot log into TestNav on Tuesday and Thursday. So we're really trying to give you flexibility so that you can manage your testing there at the local level. Step 4, so in step 4, you can see all of the students, all of the grades with students that are eligible for the selected test administration. So, your 9th and 10th graders, as well as each of the different subjects. So this was what was available last year on that Create Multiple, was grade and subject. So you can choose, that all of the students, we have 522 students in 9th grade. You can choose that all of those 522 students should be added to one or more subjects. However, we've added now 2 new tabs here on the Create Multiple. So we've added Group. So this is an optional step that you can take. You can create groups in the portal and assign students to those groups. You could then use that group, choose it from the drop-down menu. Again, select the subject or subjects that group should be assigned to. And in this case, we've also allowed you to set the number of students in a test session. So the default for computer-based testing is 200 students in a test session. We got some feedback. Some folks just want to put 50 students in a test session. With this group option, you can set that to anything up to 200, and then that number of students will be added into each test session. We've also added this 3rd tab for teacher. So this is another option that you have in the portal. You can assign students to a teacher in the portal. So this gives you a way to add students into test sessions. Linking students and teachers together also provides the teacher with those students. They can run dynamic reports at the end of the assessment window. So if you've created teachers and linked your students to them, again, you can choose your teacher. You can choose which subject or subjects those students should be added to. You can add the teacher as a room supervisor into those test sessions so that you don't have to go and edit those test sessions and add them separately. And again, you can still choose that max number of students per test session. And then step 5 will be your Proctor caching details. So hopefully your technology coordinators have gotten their Proctor cache settings entered. If they have, those will just pop up automatically for you. If no settings have been entered though, you can just checkbox that enable Proctor caching and manually enter your Proctor caching computer information, the IP address and port 4480. And then once all those steps are done, you'll click on Create Test Sessions, and the portal is going to create the test sessions for the criteria you entered. At that point, you'll be taken to the test session jobs status page. It'll default here to the Create Multiple option. Create Multiple option in the middle, so that tab. And depending on the number of sessions that you chose to create, can take up to a couple of hours for them to finish. You can always come back and check this by going to Summative Tests on the navigation bar and selecting Test Session Job Status from the drop-down menu. But from here, you'll see while they're still being created, this status is going to have a little refresh icon available. So once you click on it and it's completed, hopefully you see this completed success. That means all the students and the grades and subjects you selected have been added to their test sessions. And again, it can be up to 200 students will be added per computer-based test session. If you use that group or teacher option and chose a lower number of students, then it'll be, again, up to 200 or any of the options you may have set in between. If you see the completed warnings option, or status, that means that at least one or more students had a warning and were not able to be added into a test session for the selected grade and or subjects. So any students that didn't have a warning, they are going to be successfully added into the test sessions. It's just going to be the students that have a warning. So this is actually a link. You'll be able to click on that and you'll see a list of the students that had warnings so that you can go focus on just those students, get that warning, whatever alert there was for them resolved, and then get them added into test sessions. But again, all the other students, they will be successfully added. And it's just going to be the students with warnings that are not added into the test session. Okay, so this is new functionality. So we're going to talk about additional orders. So previously, for paper-based testing, if you had a need for an additional order, you had to contact ACT Aspire customer service. But we've added functionality into the portal so that you can go online and submit your own order. Before we review this new process, I just want you to have some things that you need to keep in mind. So remember, your initial shipments are going to include a small overage of test materials, and you don't need to submit an additional order for any of those students that you got into paper-based test sessions prior to March 10th. That was, remember, that deadline that was for paper-based test sessions. So any students you got into those paper test sessions by March 10th, they're going to receive materials. You're going to get that initial shipment, and you're going to have an overage, a small overage of materials for, additional students that you may need. The additional orders are really intended for students who were not in sessions by that deadline, and they're not going to be able to be covered by your amount of overage. So in this case, if you have students who were not in sessions by the deadline, you still need to add them into your test sessions. Get those students added. You can create new sessions or add them to existing sessions, but you do need to add them into test sessions. And then you'll submit an order. Orders will not be processed unless the ordered number of students are in the appropriate subject test sessions. So you do need to get them added before an additional order can be approved. To create an additional order, you're going to go into the portal. You're going to go to that organizations option on your navigation bar and then select Manage Orders from the drop-down menu. And then you'll see this Create New Order button is available. So you'll click on that and it will take you here to this Materials Order screen. From here, you'll be able to choose the item that you want to add. So test booklets, answer documents, large print kits, Braille kits, whatever the case might be. You're going to choose that item you need. And then you're going to also select your grade, so early high school, the subject you need, and the quantity of those materials. And then you'll be able to click on Add to Cart, and they will be added into your cart. If you view your cart, you'll see you can add more items. So if you have additional materials you need to order, then you'll be able to do that. You can adjust the quantity of the item that you've already entered. You can remove it if you didn't mean to add a specific item. Again, go back, add more items if needed. Or if you're ready, you're done, everything's there that you need, you're going to go ahead and just click on this Continue to Checkout button. It's then going to take you to the final checkout screen, and it's going to show your name and email. You do need to provide a contact number in case there's any questions, and the date that the materials are needed by. There's an optional comments field if you want to provide any additional information. And you'll see that there's a school ID field if you want to specify a specific school that the materials are for. And then once you've submitted all this information, then you'll click Save and Submit Order. To ensure timely processing, remember all paper orders are paper tests do need to be approved by WDE, so you do need to then contact WDE to have your order reviewed and approved. So once you get your order submitted, you need to contact them, let them know that you need these materials so that they can review it and approve it for you. Okay, so now let's talk about the Registered Return Status Report. This was available last year, but we've made a few updates. So the Registered Return Status Report is available under the summative tests. It's that last option. This lets you see very quickly how many students have been registered. Registered means added to a test session, or have had their test processed for scoring, or are still unregistered. They still need to be added to test sessions. You can view this report at either the district or school level. So over in the right-hand corner, your organization, that selection does impact the data available. So district is going to give you a very high-level view. From a school organization, though, you'll be able to drill all the way down to the student level. So let's look at the district level. And when we're at the district level, we're going to have two tabs, district and school. I'm looking at the district tab. It's the one that's blue. I can expand, choose this little plus icon, and I can see the grades that are being tested. So I can see each of the grade level details, so 9th and 10th. I can see the percentage of students that have been registered, not registered, or returned for scoring. And this year, we've broken out returned for scoring into two more buckets. So now there's scoring in progress or scoring complete. So before that was all just returned. We're giving you some more granular details so that you can see if they're in progress or complete. So again, registered means they've been added to a test session. Not registered means they are not added to a test session yet. I can also hover over a subject, get some more information, see the actual number of students and not just that percentage, giving you, again, some more detail, not just the high-level percentage number. You can see specifically how many students are in each of the categories. So now we're still at the district level organization, but now we're looking at a school tab. Again, high level, but now I'll be able to see each of the schools within my district. I can choose still that plus icon next to the school to see each of the grade level details, and I can still hover over a subject and get the percentage, the actual numbers and not just the percentage. Now let's look at having a school level organization. We know we're at the school level organization because we only have a school tab to access. So from here, this is where I'll be able to drill all the way down to a student level. So I can still use that plus icon, see the grade level detail. I can still hover over percentage to get the numbers, but I can actually click on a specific subject, and that's where I'll be able to then drill down to the student level and see the student details. So this is where we've drilled down to that student level. I have filters that I can use. I can look at multiple grades. I can choose one subject at a time. I can see different buckets. I can see all students, students that are not yet registered, not in a test session. I can see registered. I can see which ones are scoring in progress, which ones are scoring complete, and filter it as needed. Down here, I can see we're looking at a not registered. It's highlighted in blue. I can see specifically which students have not yet been added to a test session, and I can choose this register link and add them to an existing test session. If you haven't created test sessions yet, you still need to do that using that create single, create multiple we were talking about earlier. But if you've created them already, those are existing test sessions, and they will show from this register button link. You'll see there's also an extract option, so you can extract the list that you're looking at into Excel, so that way you can review or distribute the list outside of the portal. If you want to get it to school coordinators, you can distribute it there so that they can take action and look at the information outside the portal they can. We've also added this last updated so that you know when this report was last updated. The report updates every night, so if students just finished testing today, these buckets will not reflect because it's going to take until overnight for that to get updated. So for online testing, probably that next day you'll start to see students moving into that scoring in progress bucket after they've submitted their tests. They'll be able to see that scoring has moved in, or the student has moved into that scoring in progress. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our training today. If there's any questions at this point, please get them into the Q&A, and again, we'll get to them from our panelists. If you have questions after our training today, then we do have support options. I'd want to mention a new one. This is a brand new chat feature that's been added into the portal. So you'll see that this chat button has been added to the top of the portal. If you click on that, it's going to open up this chat screen. The only field that's required is your name, so do have to put in a name. Optionally, you can provide your email, phone number, what state you're calling about, so we know that you're in Wyoming, your district and or school name, and what program you're calling or chatting about, have questions about, so the summative assessment. So at least your name, try to provide some additional information if you can, and then click submit. And then customer service will get back to you with a prompt response, and you can do that chat option now through the portal. We do, of course, still have our phone and email support, so you can always contact ACT Aspire at 888-802-7502 and select option 8 on the phone tree. Customer service is available 6 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday, or by email at actaspire_implementation@actaspire.org. Okay, so that wraps up our training. Again, remember today's training is being recorded, as well as we're going to provide a PDF copy of this presentation. So you'll be able to find that on Avocet on under T for training. We'll also get posted to the ACT testing site so that folks can come back and review it, or if you have others who weren't able to attend, you can always send them to one of those resource links to review it in the future. Okay. See a question coming in, so we'll leave open for some Q&A for the next few minutes. Get your questions in. Use that Q&A option. Our panelists are getting back to you as quickly as possible. Otherwise, if you don't have any questions, I do want to say thank you for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time out, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.